Welcome. Today I'm going to walk you through one of the most overlooked but powerful Layer 2 security features built into Cisco switches, port security. I'll break down what it is, why it matters, and how it protects real networks from rogue device attacks and MAC flooding. Then I'll take you step by step through a live packet tracer demonstration to show these concepts in action. So, what is port security? Before we jump into our hands-on demonstration, here's a quick overview of what we'll cover. We'll start with a realistic small business network setup, then explore how switches learn MAC addresses and how port security allows us to limit which devices are allowed on each port. We'll look at 3 violation modes: protect, restrict, and shutdown, and what each one of them does. From there, I'll walk you through a simulated rogue device attack showing how the switch will react, and explain how administrators can monitor these results. Finally, we'll look at how these techniques apply in real-world networks. So why port security? Port security exists in every serious network environment in today's society. Schools, hospitals, offices, data centers, pretty much everywhere. Its job is simple but crucial: block rogue devices, protect against MAC flooding attacks, and keep unauthorized hosts off the local area network. MAC flooding can overflow a switch's MAC table and force the switch to behave like a hub, broadcasting traffic everywhere. Port security prevents this by limiting how many MAC addresses are allowed on an interface by shutting down and restricting the port if something suspicious will happen. It's a simple tool, but it's incredibly effective. So for my network topology, you'll see pretty soon in my hands-on demonstration. Here's the small lab environment. I built the addressing table. We have a server acting as our DHCP and web server connected to the switch on LAN 1. 3 PCs are attached: 1 legitimate employee device, 1 administrating workstation device, and 1 acting as an attacker or the rogue device. This admin employee systems receive their IP addresses from our server, while the switch and server use static addressing. This mirrors the basic but realistic small business local area network. Port security's role in all this. Port security plays a first-line role in protecting access ports. Switches learn devices by their MAC addresses, and port security allows us to control exactly which MAC addresses are allowed to connect. This prevents unauthorized devices from joining the network and helps mitigate MAC table overflow attacks. It essentially gives us control over who can access each physical port. Why is port security crucial? There are several real-world scenarios where port security becomes essential. Attackers can spoof MAC addresses, insider threats can intentionally or accidentally overload a switch's MAC table, unauthorized visitors could walk in and plug a laptop into an open jack, or a phishing attack could cause traffic to redirect in unsafe ways. So pretty much port security helps stop these risks at a physical access layer. Core concepts to learn. First, we have aging. One important concept is aging. Aging determines how long a learned MAC address stays valid before the switch will remove it. By default, the MAC address never ages out, but it can be customized with up to 1,440 minutes. Aging is helpful in environments where devices more often like laptops or where ports are frequently reused. Maximum MAC addresses is another thing you can set. Another core concept is the maximum number of MAC addresses a port will accept. By default, the switch allows only 1 MAC address per access port, but this can be changed depending on the environment. If the limit is exceeded, meaning a second unauthorized device connects, a violation is triggered. Static, dynamic, and sticky secure MAC addresses. There are 3 ways a switch can learn secure MAC addresses. Static addresses are manually configured, the most predictable method. Dynamic addresses are learned automatically while port security is enabled, but they are not written to the running configuration. Sticky addresses combine the best of both. The switch learns devices automatically, and then will save them into the running configuration so they persist after a reboot. Sticky is the most common method used in realistic networks. So the violation modes, which I'm going to show in my demonstration, will be protect, restrict, and shutdown with port security. When a violation occurs, port security can respond in 3 different ways. Protect silently drops traffic from the unauthorized MAC without logging anything. Restrict is similar, but logs the violation in increment counters, which is helpful for auditing. Shutdown is the strongest. It immediately disables the port and places it into an error-disabled state until an administrator manually resets it. I'll demonstrate shutdown mode later when we simulate a MAC flooding attack. sticky MAC addresses. Static secure MAC addresses must be typed in manually. Sticky addresses are learned automatically and then saved into the running configuration. In this demonstration, I'll be using sticky and dynamic learning to show how switch reacts during normal use and under an attack. Okay, everybody, and here, if you watch my recording on Packet Tracer, this is a network that I configured earlier, and it's not going to line up with what's happening on the screen. I'm just going to explain what I ended up doing and how I'm going to go through and show. You'll be able to see everything that I did as I go back and I check and I show through and scroll through everything and show the configurations. So first of all, I made it like a small business would be. I set up 3 PCs, one for employee PC, one for administrative workstation, and then lastly, I did my attacker PC, which was PC3. I set this all up with a 2960 switch and a simple setup and an SRv1 for my server, connecting it all together. And port security is a built-in protection mechanism, as I said, on Cisco switches that allows you to control which MAC addresses are allowed and to use which specific port. And because switches operate at layer 2 and learn devices purely by their MAC addresses, this is one of the simplest but most powerful internal defenses you can implement inside a network. Port security can block rogue devices, which you'll see here. You see my rogue device is already set up in PC3, limit how many MAC addresses are allowed, and protect the switch if an attacker does try to overflow the MAC address table. It'll immediately shut it down. As shown here, port security is widely used in real environments. This is my little mini setup for my topology here. Most schools, hospitals, business, enterprises, no matter how big the network, they're going to be definitely using any port security always, because it helps prevent unauthorized access everywhere in a lot of ways. It also mitigates MAC flooding attacks, which I'm going to show you here, and it can cause traffic to be misdirected and handled incorrectly by the switch. It's a simple safeguard that gives you more control over who is allowed to join your network. I have one server configured with DHCP and a switch acting as a central layer 2 device. 3 PCs are connected: the employee workstation, the administrative workstation, and the simulated attacker machine, as I previously said. The DHCP server hands out IP addresses in the 192.168.10/24 network. The switch's LAN 1 interface is set to 192.168.10.1. That is the default gateway, and the server is at 192.168.10.10 for its IP. All client devices receive their IP addresses dynamically. Before simulating the attack, of course, I had to configure everything. At first, I started after setting all the IP addresses and setting up DHCP in the server and seeing that all the DHCP collected the IPs and set them successfully under each computer. I pinged the server from each PC because it learns this forces the switch to learn all the MAC addresses. When a device sends traffic, the switch records the MAC and associates it with that port specifically. And we're setting it to 1, then it's going to need to know that port by generating traffic. So knowing that only that port should be connected in case somebody tried to unplug and plug into a certain port physically, they wouldn't be able to have access as it collected that MAC address. And it sets a baseline for what the switch thinks is normal and set in stone and the expected device. On the switch, each port was configured with a different port security behavior to show how each violation works. On FA01, I set this as shutdown mode because this is going to be the simulated attack computer, the port that I'm going to try to do MAC flooding attack with. This is the strongest setting, and if violation occurs, you'll see that the port immediately disables itself and must be manually brought back online by an administrator, which I will do later as well. FA02 configured with restrict mode, violations increment counters and log activity, but the port still is going to remain active. FA03, which is probably the safest bet and should only be used on more secure networks, and we configured that with protect mode. Violations simply drop packets for unknown. And that concludes this demonstration of Layer 2 port security. Port security is an incredibly lightweight but powerful tool for defending against rogue devices and MAC flooding attempts. It's easy to configure, widely supported, and forms a foundational layer of protection for any wired network. I hope this walkthrough helps you clarify how port security works under the hood and how these concepts apply in real-world environments. Thank you so much.